Alhamdulillahi wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi allazina istafa amma ba'd. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. والذين يقولون ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. The next attribute of the Ibadur Rahman that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran is that there are people who make this dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yakuluna, they say, Rabbana, O our Lord, Habalana, give to us, min azwajina, from our spouses, wazurriyatina, and from our children, qurrata a'yun, that which would become the coolness of our eyes. That, O Allah, grant us such spouse and children that they would become the coolness of our eyes. وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا, and make us leaders of the muttaqeen. This is one of the most beautiful du'as in the Quran, and this is the du'a for this ummah today. This is the du'a that the ummah needs today. And we haven't traveled so much, but whatever we have traveled and whatever we have seen, there are a few observations that we can make based upon our travel. And not just travel in our interactions with people and interactions with students, those who are unmarried and then those who are married. And it seems that the crisis of the ummah is not economics. The crisis of the ummah is not politics. It's not education. It's not corruption. That's not the crisis of this ummah. The crisis of the ummah is that the family unit is being destroyed. The family unit, the family is being destroyed. People don't know what it means to be happily married. People don't know what it means to be parents anymore. People don't know how to raise their kids anymore. Husbands don't know what it means to be a husband. A wife doesn't know what it means to be a wife. Parents don't know what it means to be a parent. And children don't know what it means to be a children. This is our modern context. This family unit the roles in our family, this is being destroyed by the modern context that we live in. So when we look at this dua, we learn that one of the attributes of the Ibadur Rahman is that they strive for excellence, not just in their own life, but they also strive and want and seek excellence for their family as well. For individuals and every individual in their family, they want excellence for them as well. And hence, they make this dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, oh Allah, protect our family, grant our family, save us. So, this is that very beautiful, special dua that is teaching us how we need to extend this concern that we have for ourselves, that we want to draw close to Allah Ta'ala. We want to live by the teachings of Islam. We want to have a strong taluk with Allah. We have to extend these teachings to our family. And for that to happen, we need to protect our family. We need to protect that family unit. We need to know the teachings of Islam pertaining to the family unit. This is the biggest priority that we have for those who are parents. One of the biggest priority is the Islam of their children. People say that what will happen to my children when I pass away. But we should be thinking that what will happen to my children when they pass away, when they leave this world. That's a question which no one asks. Very few people ask. We know, we ask that what will they do when we are gone? Are they making salah because we are standing over there? Or are they making salah because we have been able to put taqwa of Allah Ta'ala in their hearts? Hazrat Yaqub alayhi salatu wassalam, he is about to leave this world. He's with his sons, his children. And he looks at his children and he says that, what are you going to do? Who are you going to worship once I leave this world? And while I was here, you would worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You used to pray, used to worship Allah, used to make Allah ta'ala. You did ibadat of Allah ta'ala, but now I'm leaving. And tell me, when I'm leaving, when I'm gone, then who will you worship? This is called tarbiyat. This is tarbiyat. And for this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this beautiful dua, a dua that all of us should memorize, a dua that all of us should learn its meaning, and a dua that all of us should use every day in our life. In fact, the scholars have said that you can recite this dua every salah. They say that if a person is either unmarried and they want a pious spouse, or for those who are married and they want a happy, successful, joyous marital life, then what they should do is that in every salah, whether it is farz or sunnat or nafil, before you say salam, one can recite this dua. When you say Rabbi ja'alni muqim as-salati, after that say this dua, Rabbana hablana min azwajina wa zurriyatina qurrata a'yun waj'alna lil muttaqina imama, and then say salam, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Make this a habit that for every salah you do this, and this is a dua which has a lot of blessings. It brings lots of blessings for those who are unmarried as well as for those who are married. And I look at the dua word by word, such a beautiful way to make, such a beautiful dua and such a beautiful way to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his blessings. It starts with this word Rabbana. O our Rabb, O our Lord, O our Master. Hab lana. Hab in Arabic means gift, hiba. right? Hiba comes from the same root letter. Hiba means a gift. So it does not say that ataina or atina. Rather, it says, Allah, O my Rabb, habalana, gift to us, gift us, not give us, right? Not hand over something to us, not ataina, rather gift us. Why? And in fact, Arabic language, hiba means that gift that you don't expect, a gift which you don't expect. So we are asking Allah Ta'ala that Allah give us an unexpected, undeserved gift. Unexpected and undeserved gift. And what is that gift? Min azwajina wa zurriyatina, that from our wives, and he give us this unexpected gift from our wives and from our husbands and from our children. Give us qurrata a'yun, give us that which will make our eyes so happy that it makes us cry. Qurrata a'yun, it cools our eyes. Qurrata, coolness, a'yun, our eyes. And Allah give us such an unexpected, undeserved gift from our wives and our husbands and our children. Give us what makes our eyes so happy that it makes us cry and it cools our eyes. And we should, we should think, what does this mean? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that this gift should make you so happy. It makes you so happy. When you look at your spouse, when you look at your children, you want to cry out of joy. You want to cry when you listen to your child reciting the Quran. These Ibadur Rahman, they love this, that the child is reciting the Quran, and that makes you so happy. Or your children, they love reciting the Quran, your family loves reciting the Quran, and that makes you so happy that you want to cry. When you look at your wife and you watch that how she's raising your kids, it makes you so happy that you want to cry. When you look at your wife and watch how much she's doing for you, how much she's helping you with all the work that you have, it makes you so happy that you want to cry. When your wife, she looks at the husband and she looks how the husband is taking care of the children, how he goes out of the way to take care for her, she wants to cry. She is so happy. Qurrata ayun. Today, our husbands, they cry and our wives cry, but they don't cry because they're happy. They cry for different reasons, for other reasons. And here Allah Ta'ala is teaching us this dua. We are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tears of joy. That Allah, we want to be so happy with our family that we have these tears of joy. Now, how can we do this? If you look in our modern context, we see that every day there are fights at home. People go home, they fight with their spouse. Husbands fight with the wife, she fights with her husband. And we enter, and then this fight starts. And a person gets angry, and then they get angry at their kids. We don't have happiness in our homes. In Islam, a home is supposed to be a place, when you enter, it gives you peace. It gives you sukoon. It's supposed to make you calm. It's supposed to make you happy. It's supposed to settle you down. But it's the opposite sometimes. People enter and there is a tornado, right? People hide, we cannot be the reason for the family to be afraid of us. You can never be the reason for your spouse to be afraid of you. You cannot be the reason definitely for your kids to be afraid of you. You should rather be a reason for your family to be joyed, to be overjoyed. Your children should be loved. When you enter, they should run to you. They should hug you when you come home. So we have to make this effort. This dua, we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah give us so much happiness from our wife and from our husband and from our children that it makes us want to cry out of joy. Now, how will that happen? You cannot ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something and then not make any effort yourself. It doesn't work that way. Effort is important in anything. وَأَن لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. Person will only get what they make an effort for. You cannot just say, Rabbi ja'alni muqim as-salati, that oh Allah, make me establish on the salah, and you're just sitting, lying on the bed, as if some angel will come and lift you and take you to the musalla and then bring you back. No, you have to make an effort. So anything that you want, anything that we need in our life, whether it's the dunya or deen, we have to make some effort, and we have to make this effort ourselves. So if we want this, that the coolness, our family should become the coolness of my eye, then for that we have to make effort. We have to show them love so that we can get love from them. You have to do that. You have to make some effort in the house. We have to make this effort. This is the effort that the ummah needs to make. Fixing the family. Our children, when they see that the husband and wife, they're fighting with each other, that will have a very bad effect on them. You know, sometimes they can slip through the crack, right? They get in trouble with the mother, they run to the father. When they get in trouble with the father, they go to the mother. They can do whatever they want. They know that. Because they know the father and mother, they don't like each other. But when the father and mother, they're a team, then that's tarbiyat. Then the children know that they can't go anywhere. So this ayat is teaching us that we should care so much. We should care about raising a good family. We should care about being a good husband. We should care about being a good wife. And when you are good, then automatically your kids will also be good. When you're a good husband, your son will be a good husband. You will have a good son, will be a good husband. When you're a good wife, your daughter will be a good wife. And if we are not good ourselves, then we will create bad families. We'll create bad families in the future, and we will be at fault. We will be the reason. And the Ibadur Rahman, they ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah place that have the coolness of their eyes from their family. That Allah, we don't want coolness anywhere else. We don't want coolness outside of our family. And those other people who are unrelated to us, looking at them and getting coolness, looking at them and getting that happiness, looking at them and getting joy. No, they search for this particular type of muhabba and sukoon and coolness from within their family. That's the dua that they're making, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put this muhabbat for the other gender in all of us. Right? It's there in Quran. Allah Ta'ala says that Zuyyina lin-nasi hubbu shahawati minan nisa, that men have a desire for the women and women have a desire for men. This muhabbat, this desire is there. It's part of human nature. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants that this muhabbat should be within the boundaries of nikah, between a husband and a wife. Should not be outside the boundary, should not be with some stranger, some non-mahram, unrelated man or an unrelated woman. It should be within the boundary of nikah, This muhabbat should be there between a husband and a wife. This muhabbat. This muhabbat, when it is there, other people can see it. It's not hidden. Even children can see it. They can also feel it. That my parents, they love each other. And sometimes, these stories, I was reading this book where there's this sort of person who interviewed a few kids about like 4, 5 years old, 6 years old. And, the kids were innocent, but they can feel muhabbat in the house, right? So one of them was asked that, what is love? And he said, love is when my father, he is cutting nails of his mother, of his dadi. That's muhabbat. And another kid, he said that, the way my father, he enjoys taking the name of my mother, maybe that is muhabbat. Maybe that is love. And there was another kid who said that my mother, when she makes coffee for my father, then they drink coffee together and they look at each other and they smile. That is love. That is muhabbat. These are like 5, 6-year-old kids, and they were being interviewed, what is love? And they can sense. And one of the kids, he said that my mother, she says to my father that the shirt that you're wearing is very good. It suits you. That's love. And my muhabbat is that when my mother, she's serving food to my father, and she serves the best piece of the chicken, she keeps it for the father, and she keeps it for my dad, right? That's muhabbat. And so these are the even this taluk of muhabbat between husband and wife. If it's really there, then people can see it. Even their own children can perceive it. It's not hidden. And the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants this muhabbat to be there between husband and wife is because if that muhabbat is not there, then this person will be seeking for muhabbat outside of the house. And then this will lead to it would destroy the family unit. Every person, they have certain needs, emotional needs. They need love. And if they're not getting that love from their spouse, if the woman is not getting love from her husband, or the husband is not getting love from his wife, then they will be searching for muhabbat outside of the house, outside of the family. And that will never be able to create a beautiful home. Then that would never be able to create a beautiful family. Then that will never be able to create beautiful relationships or a beautiful society. The Deen of Islam came to create beautiful homes and families and relationships and societies. So that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed this emotion of muhabbat in a man and in a woman, so that when they marry each other, when they get married, they can express this muhabbat for each other, and that need can be fulfilled. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said about the women and about the kids, which is in Sahih Bukhari, that antum min ahibbin nasa ilayya, that you are, out of humanity, you are the most beloved to me. Yani the women of the house and the children of the house, the Prophet ﷺ is saying that you are more beloved to me than anyone else. In another hadith Mubarakah, the Prophet ﷺ said that hubbiba ilayya min ad-dunya, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made 3 things beloved for me in this dunya. Allah ta'ala has made 3 things of the dunya beloved to me. Number 1, an-nisa'u, right? Spouse, woman, right? Spouse. Watibu, and fragrance. And the Prophet ﷺ then said, وَجُئِلَتْ قُرَّةُ عَيْنِي فِي الصَّلَاةِ, and the coolness of my eyes lies in prayer. Now, this is a very beautiful hadith. It's just 3 words, but it's very, very deep, very profound, right? Very profound wisdom. Because if you reflect Three things are mentioned here. Now, when a person takes a bath and then they put the fragrance, as a result, their body, physical body, becomes fragrant. Then, when husband wife they meet and they have relations with each other, as a result of that, their thinking, their thoughts become fragrant, their thoughts become pure. Now, all those unlawful thoughts or impermissible thoughts, they go away. And then when a person prays Salah, their heart becomes pure. So, subhanallah, there are three things: their physical body, their mind, yani their thoughts, and their heart. All three of them become pure. In fact, the whole human being becomes pure. And about such people, then Allah Ta'ala says, Wallahu yuhibbul mutatahhirin, that Allah Ta'ala loves those people who keep themselves pure. Those whose body is pure, their thoughts are pure, and their feelings and emotions that they have in their heart, that's pure. So it means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of His hikmat, Allah Ta'ala wanted to create such a society. And for that reason, Allah Ta'ala has placed a natural love between men and women. But then at the same time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that if you want a peaceful, a joyous, a beautiful life, then you should attain that life by nikah. Do nikah, and then within nikah, express love to each other. And if within nikah, if you express love to each other, you will attain a reward in this dunya, and you will attain Jannat in Akhirat. Subhanallah. So this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, that Allah Ta'ala has made this muhabbat so intense within us for the opposite gender. In fact, in one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that Ma taraktu ba'di fitnatan adarra ala rijali minan nisa, that I have not left behind a greater test for men than the women. Yani this muhabbat is very intense. And then if a person can bring this muhabbat within the boundaries of the nikah and then express that muhabbat for their spouse, then this can be extremely rewarding in dunya and akhirah both. In fact, if you look at the Quran, Allah Ta'ala mentions the Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam, how much love they had for their wife. Allah Ta'ala mentions about the Prophet sallallahu, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. Allah Ta'ala mentions about different Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam, Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi salam. Once the Prophet sallallahu was asked that Man ahabba nasi ilayk, that who do you love the most from the entire humanity, from out of all human beings, who do you love the most? Kala, the Prophet sallallahu said Aisha, that I love Aisha the most. There was so much muhabbat of the Prophet ﷺ that once someone asked Salama radiallahu ta'ala anha that while the Prophet ﷺ used to be fasting, would he touch any of his wife with his hand? And she said that no, the Prophet ﷺ would not touch anyone when he would be fasting. And then he said, but Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she says that when the Prophet ﷺ would be in a state of fasting, the Prophet ﷺ would come to me and he would kiss me. And in reply, Salama radiallahu ta'ala anha, she said that Inna Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam kana idha ra'a Aisha lam yatama lak anha. That when the Prophet ﷺ, when he would come and he would see Aisha radiallahu anha, then the Prophet ﷺ would not be able to control himself. The Prophet ﷺ would go and kiss her. So this means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had placed such a deep muhabbat in the heart of the Prophet ﷺ that the Prophet ﷺ would become uncontrollably attracted towards her and would kiss her. Imam Zuhri rahmatullah alayhi said that in Islam, the first muhabba was the muhabba that the Prophet ﷺ had for Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. So this muhabbat is what we need to bring back in our life. And for this, one of the best ways to begin is to actually read the seerah. Read the seerah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Read the sunnah, read the way the Prophet ﷺ was with when he would enter the home. What was the house? What was the family of the Prophet ﷺ? Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah rahmatullah has written that فَمَحَبَّةُ النِّسَاءِ مِنْ كَمَالِ الْإِنسَانِ. This is worth reflecting. This means that to have a deep love for your wife, this is a sign of perfection of a human being. Mahabbatun nisa, the muhabbat for your wife, min kamalil insan, is from the perfection of a human being. Means that a person, when they become pious, the more pious they are, the more fear of Allah Ta'ala they have in their hearts, the more muhabbat they will have for their spouse. So we have the exact opposite tasawwur. We think when you become too religious and too pious and too muttaqi, then you have to abandon your wife. Then you have to be the no, don't disturb me in my ibadah, don't do this, don't do that, right? We become stern, we become hard. We say that this is my temperament, this is the Sharia, and we begin to mistreat our spouse. This is the exact opposite. So I just want to mention a few stories about the Prophet ﷺ, how the Prophet ﷺ was when he would enter inside his house, how he was with his family, right? So that we appreciate that the more, right? Again, we should understand that the Prophet ﷺ is that individual who has seen Jannat and Jahannam. The Prophet ﷺ had the most fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Such a level of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that no other person can have such fear in their heart. And the Prophet ﷺ said that I fear Allah Ta'ala most from all of you. But notwithstanding all of this, notwithstanding the taqwa, the piety, the khashiyah, the fear of Allah Ta'ala, when the Prophet ﷺ would come home, he had a lot of love and affection for his family. And he used to teach the Sahaba Ikram the same, that love your family, show affection to them. And this was at that time when women had no grace or honor in the family. This is pre-Islamic Jahiliyyah, right? And the Prophet ﷺ is teaching that you must treat your family with love, with affection. In a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that this world, it just consists of stuff. And the greatest stuff of this world is a pious woman, pious wife. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says that a woman who passes away in such a condition that she is putting her husband and she's taking care of her husband, and then she passes away. In fact, the words are that she's putting her husband to sleep, and then she passes away that night. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make her enter into Jannat. And another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, that woman who prays 5 times a day, who fasts in the month of Ramadan, she guards her chastity and modesty, and she listens to her husband, that woman can enter Jannah from any gate that she wants to. And another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that the wife who is obedient to her husband, then all of the birds and the wind, they make dua for her. And all of the fish in the sea, they make dua for her. And all of the angels in the heavens make istighfar for her. And even the sun and the moon will make istighfar for her. So these were a few hadiths about the women. Then another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said about the men, that the best mu'min, the best individual, the best one, is the one who is best to his wife. Is the best to his wife. And in fact, the advice the Prophet ﷺ gave, the farewell advice, one of the last wasiyat that the Prophet ﷺ gave before passing away from this world was to the men that Auma malakat aymanukum, that be careful about your family members, your wife, your spouse, your dependents. Be careful to them. Be careful about them. You will be questioned about them. The Prophet ﷺ said that the best of you is the one who is best to his family. And then the Prophet ﷺ said that I am best to my family. I am the most khair for my family. And he's setting my example. So, what is the sunnah? What should be a family? How should a person enter their home, be with their family? Let's look at a few more ahadith mubarakah and see how the Prophet ﷺ would conduct himself with his family. So, the Prophet ﷺ, when he would enter his home, he would say salam. And that's a sunnah. When any one of us, we enter our home, we should say salam. In fact, we were just doing this the other day in another class, that when the person they enter home and they say salam to their wife, to their kids, this brings a risk. It increases the risk for that family. So we should say salam, and that will be a source of barakah. Say salam. The Prophet ﷺ has promised these glad tidings of blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala becomes, this hadith says that Allah Ta'ala becomes the guarantor, Allah Ta'ala becomes the zamin. That person comes under the guarantee, the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Mu'mineen Aisha radiallahu ta'ala, she says that whenever the Prophet used to come home, not only would he say salam, but he would also come with a smiling face. He would always come back home with a smile. And in another hadith, Sayyid ibn Jabir radiallahu ta'ala narrates that whoever enters his home and makes his wife happy upon entering, listen to this hadith. Shaykh al-Hadith Maulana Zakaria rahmatullah alayhi has also mentioned this in his kitab, that whoever enters his home and makes his wife happy upon entering, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will create an angel who will make dua for that person all the way till the day of judgment. Subhanallah. So number one, the Prophet ﷺ entered smiling with a pleasing expression, saying salam. And then one of the first things he would do at home is that he would do miswak. And perhaps the wisdom is because you may want to be close to your wife, so you just want to do miswak and brush your teeth. So the Prophet ﷺ, he would use the miswak, he would clean his mouth, and then he would express his love for his wife. So much so that Mu'mineen Aisha radiallahu ta'ala, she says that once the Prophet ﷺ, even when he was fasting, he would come and kiss his wife. And then she started laughing when she mentioned this. So what does this mean? Right? One can imagine that normally, in normal circumstances, when you're fasting, they should abstain from this, because a normal person will not be able to contain their desire. They might get overwhelmed by that desire and then might go beyond the kiss and then spoil their fast maybe. So the average person should abstain. But the principle that is being highlighted here is that no matter how religious a person is, they should not make him unaffectionate. Because the Prophet ﷺ was the most pious and he was the most affectionate to his wife, to his family. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that a person, all games are futile except for a few things. And one of them is playful recreation with their spouse. Playful recreation. So what happened was that there's one Sahaba, when he got married, the Prophet ﷺ asked him that, did you marry a virgin or a non-virgin? And he said that I married a non-virgin. And then the Prophet ﷺ said that if only you had married a Bakira, then you would be laughing with her and she would be laughing with you. And you would be playing with her and she would be playing with you. And the Prophet ﷺ is explaining that the purpose of a married life is to have a playful display of love, to have a playful display of affection. Playful. Now there's a hadith in Sahih Muslim that even when the other wives were present, sometimes the Prophet ﷺ, he would affectionately extend his hand towards one of them. So it means that the Prophet ﷺ, when he was at home, there was a lot of open display of affection. Display of open affection. It wasn't cold. The environment at home, it wasn't cold or stern or harsh or unaffectionate. No, it was an affectionate home. And if any person says, no, this is my personality, my tabiyat, we have to sacrifice our tabiyat for the shariat. We have to sacrifice our tabiyat for the sunnah, for the shariat. Another sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, he used to have nicknames for his wife. Ummul Mu'mineen Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, sometimes the Prophet ﷺ used to call her Aish, short. And sometimes he would call her Humaira. Humaira means rosy-cheeked, red, rosy, pinky, right? Humaira. A woman who's of fair complexion, but a redness on her cheek, right? Like when you mix red and white, the color you get is pink, right? So the Prophet used to call her Humaira as a nickname out of love. And not just having a playful display at home, but also a responsible individual at home. What does that mean? When the Prophet used to enter his home, he wouldn't just sit like a master of the house, but he would join in the housework, help. Ummul Mu'mineen Aisha radiallahu ta'ala, she says, and when she was asked that what would the Prophet do when he would come back home? So she responded that he would join his wife in the house chores. He would participate in the work of the house. And when it was time for salah, then he would go out and pray salah. So the Prophet, when he used to come home, he would enter the home, he would clean his clothes, he would take out the milk from the goats, he used to take care of himself, he used to cut his nails, trim his mustache, change his dress, right? Personal grooming. The Prophet even used to stitch his own clothes and repair his own shoes when they were broken. Imagine, this is the greatest of Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam, the greatest of humanity, Imamul Anbiya. But look at the simple, beautiful household life that the Prophet had. This is the legacy. This is a legacy of love, of compassion, cooperation, affection. And when the Prophet was with his family, he showed the most intimate love, the most close love to his family members. This one hadith, I think most of us might be familiar with, that once the Prophet was inside his home and he was looking towards the masjid, and Ummul Mu'mineen Aisha radiallahu ta'ala, she was standing with the Prophet as well. And then there were some people inside the masjid who were playing around with their spears and arrows. And she was looking at them. And she was a young girl. So she was looking at them playing in the masjid until she got tired. Now, in another hadith, we learn that the Prophet he stood by the door. And she says that I came and I started peering over the shoulder of the Prophet. And I put myself cheek to cheek with the Prophet. So what does that mean? That means she wasn't actually watching the game. This was an opportunity for her to be intimately close to the Prophet. She took this as an opportunity to clasp the shoulder of the Prophet, climb up from behind, and put her cheek on the blessed cheek of the Prophet. And then when the Prophet told her that, have you seen enough play? Can we go? And she said, no, I want to keep watching. But the reason why she wanted to keep watching was not because she was interested in the game, but because she wanted to keep herself close to the Prophet. And from this hadith, we learn that the wife, she should also display her affection to her husband. she should also come close to him and she should clasp him and be cheek to cheek with him. She should display that physical affection. The woman should want that, and the man should also want that, both ways. So once Umm-ul-Mu'mineen Aisha radiallahu anha, she was drinking water, and the Prophet ﷺ said that, "Oh Aisha, leave your leftover for me. Leave your jhuta for me." And you look at the level of love the Prophet ﷺ was showing for Aisha radiallahu. Because he could have told her that you can just bring me water. But instead the Prophet ﷺ said, "No, I want you to leave some of your leftover water for me." And the leftover of the wife has barakah, but all the barakah actually belongs to the Prophet ﷺ, right? So it should have been her that she would be drinking from the leftover of the Prophet ﷺ. But no, the Prophet ﷺ, he wanted to show that he loved her so much that he wanted to drink her leftover water. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he lifted that bowl and he put his lips at the same spot where Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she had put her lips. Again, another demonstration of affection, of love. So once the Prophet ﷺ and Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, they were in a jamaat, and then they stayed back instead of going forward. And the Prophet ﷺ said that, okay, let's race one another. And so they raced. And the Prophet ﷺ went a bit slow so that she could win. And she won. And then the Prophet ﷺ smiled and gave a very big smile to her. And then Aisha radiallahu ta'ala, she says that many years later, there was another opportunity, a same opportunity. And the Prophet ﷺ asked me to race. But now I had grown older and I was a bit more heavy. So now the Prophet ﷺ, he beat me in that race. And he said, "Tilka be tilka." That Aisha, this is a return for your victory. My victory over you today is a return for that. And again, the Prophet ﷺ smiled. So this is showing how a person should be. That they should find ways to spend time with their spouse in a loving way. Find ways to express that love to their spouse. And this is also an ishara. The muhaddiseen, they have extracted an ishara or benefit from this hadith. They say that a husband doesn't always have to be in a winning position. Sometimes, if it doesn't make a difference, he should let the woman take the winning position so that she also can get that happiness. So all of these hadiths mubarakah, they are giving us a clear picture that the time in the house should be spent with love and affection. Another thing which is important within our homes is that we develop love within our family. Right? So if you have more, kids, family, we develop love within all the individuals of our family. And again, we see examples of this in the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, Umm-ul-Mu'mineen Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha and Umm-ul-Mu'mineen Hazrat Hafsa radiallahu ta'ala anha, they were both very intelligent. And there was another wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sauda radiallahu ta'ala anha, who was not so intelligent, let's say, right? So one day when she came, they told her that, this one-eyed person has come. Now, one-eyed person means Dajjal, right? Dajjal has come. So when she, Hazrat Sauda radiallahu ta'ala, she thought that this was maybe Dajjal. And she started looking for a place to hide. And she said, "Where can I hide? Where can I hide?" And they said that you can hide in the tent. So quickly, Hazrat Sauda radiallahu ta'ala, she went and hid in the tent. And when she went inside the tent, she sort of got soiled because there was some web there, and when she went inside, and Hazrat Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha and Hazrat Hafsa radiallahu ta'ala anha, they started laughing then. And at that time, the Prophet ﷺ entered, and he saw that these two were laughing so much, they were laughing so much, uncontrollable laughter, that they couldn't even explain that what was going on. They just pointed towards the tent, laughing, right? Pointed towards the tent. So then the Prophet ﷺ went to the tent, and as he looked inside, he saw that Hazrat Sauda radiallahu ta'ala anha, she was hiding there, as if she's hiding from Dajjal. So he asked that, Sauda, what has happened to you? Do you think that Qiyamah has come? And then he took her out, and then the Prophet ﷺ, he dusted her cheek, right, from the dust that was on her cheek. And then the Prophet ﷺ realized that maybe someone has played a trick on her. So then he started smiling. And then when she saw him smiling, Hazrat Sauda radiallahu anha, she also started smiling as well. So this shows how much the Prophet ﷺ wants to establish love in his house. Now, in every house, there might be, ups and downs, but we should deal with situations positively. So when once Hazrat Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she was at home, and if anyone would send food, she would become very surprised, and she would say that it's my turn to cook, right? The Prophet ﷺ is with me. I want that the Prophet ﷺ should eat the food that I'm cooking for him. Why is someone else sending food? So once when this happened, right, someone else sent the food, she just grabbed that plate of food and it dropped from her hand and it broke. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he just looked at her and he smiled at her and said to the person who brought that plate that your mother has ghaira. Ghaira. Your mother has ghaira. It means that the Prophet ﷺ did not get angry at her for dropping it. He smiled at this act of hers, that she felt that it's my day, right? And the Prophet ﷺ should eat from my hand, not someone else's hand. So this is how the Prophet ﷺ dealt with that situation. If it was any one of us, we would have said that, oh, you're so rude, you misbehaved and you dropped the dish. But the Prophet ﷺ didn't do that. He understood the emotion of love behind her action. And instead of commenting on the bad consequence of that action, the broken dish, he just commented positively on the positive emotion that she was feeling that was behind her action, that ghaira, that love that she had for the Prophet ﷺ. But then another riwayah, there is also an element of tarbiyah. So when she says that when the dish dropped from her hand, she says, I asked the Prophet ﷺ that what should I do for a kafara? And the Prophet ﷺ said that since you broke that dish, you have to give her a new dish. And if her food is spoiled, then you'll have to make new food for her. So this also shows the just nature of the Prophet ﷺ. That even though the Prophet ﷺ spoke to her positively, but also trained her, that give that dish back, give the food back. So teaching us that this tarbiyat can be done, but tarbiyat has to be done in a very soft way, a gentle way, a positive way, an affectionate way, with an affectionate tone, because that is ultimately more successful and more beneficial, as opposed to doing it in a very harsh tone or a stern tone. And a similar way, the wife, she should also express love for her husband. And once there was a woman who asked Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha that you should tell me what were the wonderful things that you saw in the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And Aisha radiallahu anha, she started crying and said that, every single thing about the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was amazing. So one woman, she came and said that, tell me one of the amazing aspects of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as a husband. And then she said, no, everything about the Prophet was amazing. Everything. So what does this mean? This is also a sunnah that a husband should be so beloved to his wife that if anybody asks the wife about the husband, that wife should get tears in her eyes. This is what it means, coolness of the eyes. She has tears in her eyes, and the wife, she's remembering her husband so fondly and saying that every single thing about him was amazing. And when the Prophet ﷺ used to be lying down on the bed with Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, and then once he said that, oh Aisha, I'm going to get up and I'm going to pray to Allah ta'ala. I'm going to pray tahajjud. And then she said, then no, Ya Rasulallah, I love your qurb. I love it when you stay lying with me. But I also love it when you stand up and you worship Allah. So it means that a wife, she should also show her love for the husband. She should also express verbally that I love to be near you. I love your qurb. I love to be by you. I love to be by your side. And, many women may think that, if they speak like this, they will be lowered in the eyes of their husband, but that's not correct. Actually, when they express their love and affection with words, they will be raised up in the eyes of their husbands. So it's not just the husband who should demonstrate the affection, but it's also the wife who has to demonstrate that affection as well. And what about, marital relations? Again, there are so many teachings, and there's no area of life where the Prophet ﷺ has not given us teachings. So about this aspect, which is the most intimate between husband and wife, the Prophet ﷺ said that when you want to meet your wife, you should send a messenger. And the Sahaba, they said that, what message should we send to her? And the Prophet ﷺ said, the messenger of your kisses. And then the wife will realize that my husband wants to spend time with me, and she will get prepared for that. Once it was cold weather, and Aisha radiallahu anha, she says that the Prophet ﷺ came and he said that I need to lie down, I need to rest. So Aisha radiallahu anha, she says that I extended my thigh, and the Prophet ﷺ came and he put his head on my thigh, which means that he put his head in the lap of Aisha radiallahu anha. And this is again a teaching for us. The Prophet ﷺ, if he wanted, he could have gone and slept on a pillow. But love, it wants effect, it wants display. Love wants to be shown. The Prophet ﷺ is showing us how to live with such love, with such affection in your home. That the Prophet ﷺ is putting his head on the lap of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. And then she says that when the Prophet ﷺ did this, I bowed down and I covered the head of the Prophet ﷺ, and I also hugged the Prophet ﷺ. So it means that the Prophet ﷺ laid on her, and then she laid down on top of him, such that the Prophet ﷺ got warmed because it was cold weather. And then the Prophet ﷺ, when he was warmed up, he was able to sleep peacefully. So the husband should always be loving and affectionate towards the wife, and the wife should also always be loving and affectionate towards her husband. And both of them should make this effort. Make this effort. They should not be angry with one another. And this is an easy way to enter into Jannah. Easy way to enter into Jannah. The last thing that I want to share with you about this dua is وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ imama. That, oh Allah, make us imam, make us leaders over people that have taqwa. In other words, everyone is an imam. In a house, everyone is an imam. Father is an imam, the mother is an imam. Like you have an imam of the masjid, right? But at home, everyone is an imam. You're the imam of your house. Whether you have a beard or not, right? You're the imam. Whether you have memorized the Quran or not, you're the imam. Imam means you have people under your care, right? So you're the imam. You have to look out. You have to look over them. You have to support them, protect them. So this is when we will, on the day of Qiyamah, we will stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as imam. We'll be the imam of my spouse, my kids. The wife will be the imam of her kids. And when we are imam, we'll be tied to them. We'll be tied to our children. And if we didn't do our job with them properly, and they made mistakes because of me, and I never corrected them for their mistakes, I never did their tarbiyah, their mistakes will cost me. I will be dragged down with them. But on the other hand, if we raise our children correctly, we do their proper tarbiyah, they went on to serve the deen of Allah Ta'ala, they became good people, they did good deeds, then that will raise them. And when they are raised, automatically we will be raised up because we are chained to them. So that's why we're asking Allah Ta'ala, وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ imama. That tie me with the muttaqeen. We need that on the day of Qiyamah. We need our kids. We need our family on the day of Qiyamah because my deeds are not going to be enough. I need something special from my children, and then their children, and their children, and their children, all the way, so that they can then lift me up because my deeds are not enough. So we then make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make each and every one of us have a home of love and affection, as the Prophet has taught us, the way the Prophet lived by example. And we make dua that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give every husband a wife who follows these teachings. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give every wife a husband who follows these teachings. We're soft with one another. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this dua true for all of us. Rabbana hablana min azwajina wa zurriyatina qurrata a'yun waj'alna lil muttaqina imama wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin. سبحان ربي الوهاب اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. اللهم إنا نسألك حبك وحب من يحبك وحب من يقربنا إليك. اللهم إنا نسألك من خير ما سألك منه عبدك ونبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، ونعوذ بك من شر ما استعاذك منه عبدك ونبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. وأنت المستعان وعليك البلاغ لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم صلى الله تعالى على حبيبي خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم. Inshallah, tomorrow we will have the last session for this series, Ibadur Rahman. We will then, tomorrow will be the conclusion of all of these ayat, that what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give to these people, to the Ibadur Rahman. That will inshallah come tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.